over the weekend announced that it will join South Africa on its case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. Pretoria is accusing Israel of committing a genocide in the Gaza Strip, where scores of people have died since the conflict started when Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, 2023. International condemnation is growing against the Jewish state as the conflict is escalating due to its ongoing bombardment in Gaza. Brazil has invoked Article 63 of the statute of the ICJ and filed in the registry of the court a declaration of intervention in the case. To get the views of the Palestinian Solidarity community, we're joined by Professor Usuf Chikte, who is coordinator from the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Professor Chikte, thank you for joining us. How are you on this Monday morning?
I'm very good, and I'm afraid we can't say the same of Palestinians. And thank you for that introduction. And I think it needs a slight amendment. The war didn't start on October the 7th. It's been it has been there. The genocide has been there since 1948 with the Nakba and the expulsion of the Palestinians. And what's happening in Gaza now, 70% who are refugees from the Nakba of 1948 and 1967, the Naksa. So I think Ilan Papi describes what is happening in Palestine, what has happened in Palestine since 1948 as an incremental genocide. And what we're seeing now is a genocide. That is what the United Nations rapporteur on human rights, Judge Navi Pillay, has pronounced around here. But your question is, and your focus is on Brazil's involvement.
Yes, and what is your take on Brazil's move?
Brazil's involvement is, I think it has profound legal, political, moral implication, and in the immediate terms, it will have little impact on the ground. In terms of, the United Nations, the ICJ is the top court of the United Nations, and the United Nations is prevaricating on this matter, and Brazil has joined about 13 other countries which has intervened in the case that South Africa has brought. And it has done so in Article 63, and Article 63 essentially is around how the court will interpret the Genocide Convention in terms of, and Brazil refers especially to Articles 1, 2, and 3 of the Genocide Convention. And so, but Brazil is an important actor. It's one of the largest, biggest, most populous countries in Latin America. So there's growing international support for the South African case, and support from a BRICS country, a country from Latin America, and it joins other countries, Spain, Mexico, Ireland, Turkey, and other, Colombia and Chile as well. So the international weight that Brazil now adds to the case is important. Israel has not adhered to the provisional orders which South Africa sought in terms of stopping starvation, increasing humanitarian aid, and stopping the military campaigns. And the court will only sit is awaiting the response from Israel to respond to the South African charges and the provisional orders, and that will be on the 26th of January. So it's a long wait. The provisional orders are binding, and Israel is getting diplomatic cover from the United States and funding to continue its genocide. So politically, it's important. Legally, it will add weight to it, and morally, it adds to the tsunami of support that the Palestinians are receiving in seeing we're undergoing a genocide. So that, in a nutshell, is what is taking place. It's complemented also by last night's announcement that the UK, Canada, and Australia will recognize the Palestinian state. But it's all these maneuverings gives little comfort to the immediate needs of the Palestinians. And we've seen Israel has entered Gaza City, bombed it, and ethnically cleansing that part of it. And there seems to be no immediate relief for them. So the International Court of Justice and the Brazil application is important. That in the long run is important to designate Israel as a genocidal state, which has already been done by Nabi Pillay and international scholars. But you know, we need to seek immediate relief. There's a global Sumud flotilla where the civilian populations are providing aid or providing relief through a flotilla around that, and Israel has threatened to bomb them, and that's a big issue. The United Nations will decide, and we've spoken about the upcoming General Assembly meetings on Israel as a Palestine, to the recognition of an Israel, of Palestine as a state, and that will also shift the thinking around the needs, the inalienable rights of Palestinians for self-determination, and not to be subject to a genocide, an apartheid, and an oppression.
So there's been a tsunami of support, as you've noted, but what about the frustrations that you are undergoing as the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign in terms of how the world is reacting to the conflict?
Yeah, so what we are doing as civil society, we're putting added pressure on our South African government from this end. Third parties have an obligation in terms of all the rulings that the UN has pronounced upon. And we're going to go on a big march in Cape Town on the 27th to Parliament. And while we applaud the South African efforts at the ICJ, at the International Court of Justice, the coal, the trade in coal still fuels the genocide. You know, there's still a genocidal economy that is taking place where big companies like Amazon, who are based in Cape Town, and we've protested there to say that they must cease their facilitation and their complicity in the genocide. The coal from South Africa has increased, the trade from South Africa has increased, so there's a dissonance between what South Africa says at the International Court and what is happening here in South Africa in terms of trade and its ongoing support for Israel, albeit indirectly. We're also asking for Israel to be isolated, for the ambassador to be kicked out, and the embassy to be closed, which Parliament has decided on, but which hasn't been enacted yet. We're also calling for rapid prosecution of those South Africans who have joined the Israeli army and in contravention of a Foreign Military Assistance Act, and so that is what we're pursuing. We're also encouraging and demanding that the South African government invokes the Unite for Peace resolution. You know, part of the problem is that the United Nations Security Council is blocking aid, a ceasefire to Gaza, in Gaza, and they've done so recently again. And so we're asking South Africa to, with the Hague Group of Nations, to ensure that they invoke at the General Assembly the Unite for Peace resolution, which will ensure that we bypass the veto effect of the United States at the Security Council for us to get aid in, for a ceasefire to be taken place, for Israel not to be able to conduct its military campaigns in the area, and for protection of the Palestinians. That is what the kinds of things that we're trying to enforce, demand our government to do, and we're boycotting, divesting, and sanctioning Israel, and that is part of our overall strategy.
President Ramaphosa of South Africa is expected to raise the Palestinian issue at the UN General Assembly. That's going to be tomorrow, Tuesday. What do you expect from him?
We expect from him for a call for the implementation of the provisional orders which the ICJ has pronounced upon. And we also expect from him to call on, to say that the Parliament, that the resolution of Parliament needs to be implemented. It's sitting with him, and he's not signing that resolution which says that Israel must be kicked out of South Africa, which will put into motion a whole series of things like Israel must be kicked out of FIFA as well. He will probably say that they are going to submit, in terms of the articles of the United Nations Security Council, measures to enforce the provisions of the court by the Security Council. But we know that that's going to meet a dead end from the United States. So we're in that kind of deadlock, and so we're expecting after that for him to go to for South Africa to go to the General Assembly to invoke the Unite for Peace resolution and the right to protect resolution, which will minimize the effect of a veto on the part of the United States, which has been supporting and has been a co-belligerent with respect to the genocide with Israel against the Palestinians.
Professor Chikte, we thank you so much again for your time and your valuable insights.
Thank you, Asanda. Strength to you.
Pleasure, you too. Professor Usuf Chikte, Coordinator from the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, talking to us here on Rise and Shine.